What's up, everybody? Sorry, getting the tech right here. Basically, the reason I've been gone is because um my camera was kind of broken, and I thought I fixed it. But next time I stream, I'll have it fixed. I need to get a tech person to come help me out. But we're gonna have a great show regardless. So yeah, sorry I've been gone for so long. Um, might as well start with something that happened recently that I guess kind of is a little bit connected to why I haven't been here in a while either. And that's kind of what's going on with Naomi Osaka. And, she's a like number one or number two tennis player in the world. And she recently dropped out of a tennis match, the French Open, because, uh, she's citing mental health reasons and not wanting to speak to the press. And I've seen, a lot of people talking about it. Sorry, my voice is also a little hoarse. So I apologize about that. But um, yeah, so she cited mental health reasons, not wanting to speak to the press, and obviously, myself being in sports and that being a part of what I have to do as well. Um, I can certainly understand, where she's coming from. I can certainly understand where she's coming from, and people really hate when they can't control athletes. You can say it's a part of your job to have to do it. The media is an important part of sports leagues, which is true, which is definitely true. But at the same time, I think there needs to be some boundaries established, and someone is suffering from anxiety, outside of the sport world or depression in that time, and they don't want to have to go up there and speak to the media. I think that should be, why should you have to go up and speak with them? If you have this, if we're saying we actually care about player and athlete safety and athlete health, that doesn't just apply to the physical, that also applies to the mental as well. And being an athlete, you're always constantly under scrutiny, right? That's a part of your job, but that also brings a lot of mental hurdles that come with that. And I'm glad she stepped out and said, you know what, enough is enough. I'm just not going to play. Um, because she has that power. And I think athletes should realize the power that they have, not only within the space of sports, but also outside of sports as well. And that's why I try and do what I do. Um, so, she definitely, has my support, my solidarity. And, and next time, if you have to try and skirt around it, that's why I love Marshawn Lynch. He was a running back for the Seattle Seahawks for a while, and Buffalo Bills, and he didn't like speaking to the media, and he was getting fined because he didn't want to speak to the media. And then he went out there and he spoke to the media, but he did it in his own way. And that was being very short and being very direct, and not, expounding too much or opening himself up too much in that space. He didn't want to do that. But then you see outside of the press room, he is very involved. He's very involved in, just media space in general, but just not in that press room. He didn't necessarily want to be that. So he said, I'm just here so I won't get fined. And that was an awesome moment, I think, for a lot of people, athletes. It kind of showed us that we can reclaim and retake back that power. We can answer whatever question we want to answer, and if we don't want to answer the question because we feel like it crosses some type of boundary, then we don't have to answer that question, and that's it. So I'm glad that she did that. And I'm, like I said, I stand in solidarity with her and other athletes, who feel the same way. But yeah, so it's been good for my mental health as well these past few weeks. I do love doing this content for y'all. Um, but sometimes it just gets overwhelming, and football has kind of started to pick up again. And but I've been planning some great things. Obviously, we're gonna have a great interview today with Councilwoman Kshama Sawant of Seattle's third district. I'm super excited about that. We're gonna talk to her about a range of issues. So yeah. I'm glad to be back. Let's just say that I'm glad to be back, and um, some more cool announcements should be coming here in the future. I'm gonna be talking to a mutual aid organization, a newer one, that has a very intriguing co-founder, and I'll name it after we have that conversation. Um, oh, someone said the K in Kshama is silent. Okay, so Kshama Sawant. Thank you, appreciate that, Justin. Um, uh, so yeah, gonna be working or potentially talking to them, and I think mutual aid is something that I definitely want to get into. And so I'm taking steps to do that. So that'll be exciting. I'll talk to y'all about that when it kind of is more ironed out. But I think we're gonna have to do some more stuff like that just in our communities. I think that's a lot of ways. Some people were able to make it through the pandemic because they were able to get help from their community. Obviously, when that help from the state or federal government was not there. So someone say, "Yeah, Naomi's 23. She's younger. Yeah, she's younger than me. I'm 25, so she's younger. Um, she's younger than both of us. Let me. I'll be right back. Give me 10 seconds." Okay. So Shama will be on soon. Um, I just need to finish setting one thing up, but Thomas Horter, appreciate the super sticker. Appreciate the super sticker. Why don't you guys drop some names in the chat box who y'all want to see me have on the show? I've been reaching out to people, but let me know who you guys would like to see me talk to um in the next couple of weeks, and then middle of June, once middle of June hits, I'm gonna be free from football a little bit. I will have less to do, so I'm gonna be. Someone said Abby Martin, Crystal Ball, Nina. So I'll be doing some more conversations. So I definitely want to have Abby Martin would be awesome to have Abby on. I'll definitely reach out to her. Kyle, I can get Kyle on. We've talked about him coming on, and Jimmy too. Uh, let's see, Marianne Williamson. Oh, I'd love to speak with Marianne Williamson. Malcolm Jenkins, interesting. I do. I want. You know, I feel like I really want to get Kyrie Irving on. That'd be cool to talk to him. That'd be cool to talk to him, or just some of these other. There's some other football players I've recently been in contact with, other NFL players that are very involved, more so locally and within local politics, not necessarily national, but I want to have some conversations with them as well. Go for someone who doesn't have an obvious platform. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I want to pull up some or speak with some people that just obviously I'd love to speak with commentators, but people that also aren't. Thomas Frank would be a great interview. Also Max Blumenthal. Thanks for the super chat, Seth. Um, okay, I'll definitely try and get a hold of them then. I think I could talk to Max. I've talked to Aaron Mate, and Thomas Frank. I know a few people who've had him on, so I might be able to get in touch with him through that. Okay, cool. Let's see. So I haven't, I've been keeping up with what's been going on just around the country. Even though I haven't been streaming, but we're gonna talk a little bit later after the interview with Shama about. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Biden infrastructure plan. The news that kind of just came out. I think it was today about well, what's actually what legislation might get passed, and of course we're not going to be surprised, but um, we'll talk about that a little later. That's going to be coming up after the interview with Shama, and then that'll be it for the day. I'll make sure I answer you guys' super chats and whatnot, and talk with the chat a little bit, and then we'll probably sign out for the day. But I do want to potentially get another stream this week, but we'll see. Socialism for All has an amazing channel. Help them. Okay. Socialism for All. I need to start writing down some of the people you guys say. So I truly, someone came, I think someone slid into my like Twitter like mentions or something and was like cussing me out because I didn't get back to them. And it was mostly because I don't write things down sometimes. And I had said I would reach out to them in the chat, and I forgot, and I got cussed out because of that. I'm like, yo, I'm really sorry. Like, it was not intentional. So I'm gonna start writing some of the stuff you guys say down. So I stopped getting cussed out in my mentions. Thoughts on TYT smearing Aaron Mate? Yeah, I saw that kind of in passing. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand it. That's a fight that I'm just like, it's ridiculous. Like, why are you smearing a real journalist who actually got the thing right? Like, he got Russiagate right. Like, he was proven right through, just the facts that ended up being borne out. Yet you're still you're saying fuck you to him, like, really? So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I do know, and then it's just absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like I want to just focus more on, the issues, and on just like talking to people that are doing things locally, on a state level, like people like Shama, and see what lessons we can take from that and apply it. I'm just not as interested in the back and forth banter. I'm just not as interested in that anymore. Cornel West would be great. I need to get Cornel West on. He's probably going to be one of my next few, guests if he accepts. If he accepts the offer, that would be amazing. But yeah, so I'm less interested in the back and forth banter nowadays. Like, I don't know. I just think it's like, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point? Can you get Anand Giordanis on? I'm not sure how to say his last name. I know Brianna Joy Gray talked to him on the Bad Faith podcast, and that was a great interview. I don't know what else I would ask him. I don't know. Someone said he'll accept your Justin Jackson. Well, he's Cornel West, so what do you mean? He's Cornel West. I think that carries a lot of weight, probably more than my name. Any interest in thanks for appreciate that, Kate, in talking with minor league teams about players being squeezed out and shut down by the majors. Bernie Sanders was working on it. I don't know that much about that. I can research that more. I don't think I'm surprised. I say I'm not surprised about that, but I do know that there's some legislation going out right now about college sports and college athletes, getting paid rightfully so, as they create hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue every single year. So, but I'm not sure about that one, Kate. I'll have to look into that, but maybe I'll do a story on it, cover it. We're gonna have Shama on in about 10 minutes, I believe. So I'm really excited about this. Do you think the Lakers can come back? I don't know. The Lakers did not look good. Did not look good last game. And they haven't played together all year. And probably, other than LeBron, obviously the most essential piece of their team. I don't know if he's going to be playing today or not, but with a groin strain, I've had a groin strain. Tough to come back from that after 4 days. Margaret Kimberly. I've talked with Margaret Kimberly. The schedule has just always like not worked out for some reason, but I do want to get Margaret on the show. But yeah, so I mean, I've been like I said, I haven't stayed up on everything that usually I'm like I've see like everything that's going on. I've kind of been larger strokes, I guess. Um, Seeing things that are kind of more national news, but we're gonna get back into it. We're gonna get back into it. I'm excited to be back. And I'm probably gonna be doing like 2 streams a week, maybe 3. Um, that's just kind of what works out in my schedule right now. Once I get this camera fixed, which will allow me to have a little better setup than I got right now. But yeah, so let's see what else we got here. And I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats with you guys. I will never support anyone who calls for censorship. I didn't see like what was I didn't see what was going on. Who was calling for censorship? It says status coup. Are you sure? I literally I was on status coup as like a guest host, and I don't see that. I didn't see that happening, but whenever I see Brianna Joy Gray, I'm so inspired. Love her. Yeah, she's great. I mean, and their interviews are incredible, and I think um, I feel like I learned a lot more. I feel like I learned a lot more after I've listened to that, and especially when it comes to like strategizing and learning history and how we can use that to kind of inform what's going to happen in the future, right? Which is like what when we're going to talk about this infrastructure package that's going through right now. Um, we can learn from history and past fights like this to know that this package is going to continue to get slashed and slashed and slashed until it's pretty much down to similar to what the Republicans want, right? Because the Democrats are always going to chase the Republicans right. And knowing that, what we should be doing, and this is what I'm excited to talk about to Sham about, is using other, measures, using other strategies. And that doesn't really that doesn't really seem like it's the case right now. And I haven't seen, and if they don't, I mean, Biden doesn't seem like he's going to try and do this through reconciliation. But we all know that he's not going to get 10. He's not going to get 10 Republican votes. It's just not going to happen. So we're back at square one essentially. But we're going to go through it a little bit later after the interview, kind of step by step, how exactly we've gotten to this point. Where the Democrats are essentially negotiating themselves down to try and get Republicans on. Which, at the end of the day, you're not going to get 10 Republicans. So what's the point? Meanwhile, everything is still falling apart when you look outside, right? People are still struggling every single day, and the one hope of this infrastructure package actually providing some type of jobs and some type of investment is being dwindled down, and that's exactly how you lose elections. That's exactly how you lose elections. So we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Let me make sure my guest is good to go. I want to make sure they got everything they need. Give me 1 second. I think I'm also going to start talking about some other type of topics as well. Um, I you know I really want to have someone on to talk about finance. So I might get like Dylan Radigan or someone to talk about finance and the Fed. Because I think as a left, we need to. I think a lot of times we not that we skip over that step, but I don't think we know as much, in the details about, how our financial system works and the levers, that can be used by us to actually push back against that. So I want to bring someone on to talk about finance because I think like I said, I think we need to learn more about that. And I know I do. I know I do as well. I think I might be. I really want to reach out to Steve Grumbine, and he's an MMT guy. And so, someone said, look right here. Someone just said it. Get Grumbine on MMT. That's who I want to reach out to talk about that. Still don't get what status quo did to lose our trust. What am I missing? I don't know. I don't know what happened with status quo. So, someone said Richard Wolf. I had Richard Wolf on. Go check out that interview. It should be on YouTube. Mark Blythe would be good for economics. I haven't heard that name in a while, but I would love to talk with him and maybe even update us on what's going on in England as well. Because a lot of times there's a lot of similarities and parallels with what goes on there. And then you get Max Kaiser on. Yeah, I'd love to have Max on. I can talk about crypto. There you go. There's another topic that I want to talk about a little bit, and get his thoughts on what's been going on with that. And it seems like, I think when he was interviewing with Jimmy, what I saw was, and what he was asking is how is this not going to be manipulated in the same way that some of the other financial institutions and markets are manipulated. And we saw that that's exactly what did happen. It seems like recently that market is also not exempt from that. So, okay, well, the time is here. Something I've been waiting for. I'm very excited for a person to interview. This is Councilwoman Kshama Sawant from the 3rd District in Seattle. Welcome to the show, Councilwoman.
Thank you for having me, Justin.
Of course. So I kind of want to start locally because, a lot of the attention gets paid to the national level, and a lot of people, are their first time running for office, that we hear about kind of in the lefty media space, are these people running for, national offices. What kind of made you come to the, resolution that you were going to run for local office? Did you see that was a place that, starting off in politics was a good kind of launching point, or is that just somewhere you thought, this is where I could make the most impact right now? I'm gonna come out and run as an open socialist in Seattle.
Thanks so much for that question, Justin. There are two parts to the response to your question. One is how we decided to launch the election campaign in the first place, and second, the question about local versus national, which I'm glad you brought up because that's often a question that we confront on the left. What kind of campaign should we run? So fundamentally, the kind of campaign we ran, meaning Socialist Alternative, the political organization that I belong to, Socialist Alternative is a nationwide organization of social and economic justice activists. We have our members not just in Seattle, but in many other cities. Most recently, one of our new branches is in Bessemer, Alabama, where the Amazon workers struggled for unionizing, and our organization was on the ground in solidarity with them. And coming out of that, we've launched our first branch in Alabama, which is really exciting. It shows the openings for socialism throughout the nation. And so what I was trying to say was that the way we ran our campaign for city council, the first campaign in 2013, and then we won that, and then since then we've won two re-elections, has been fundamentally different than the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of campaigns that we see, where it's usually somebody who wants to make a career, even though a given person may be well-meaning, and the starting point is, I want to run for office for whatever reason. That was absolutely not the starting point for us. And I deliberately used the we pronoun and not me, because I'm just a member of Socialist Alternative. I joined Socialist Alternative because the politics, the ideas of Marxism completely aligned with my thinking, but I didn't decide to run for office. I was just an activist. But when we came out of the Occupy movement, and in 2012, remember, the message was just hunker down and vote for Obama and the Democratic Party again.
Right.
Clearly, we could see that there was an opening for something different. People were hungry
Mm.
for a different kind of politics that was an alternative to the usual sort of apologist politics to Wall Street. And so in that spirit, we ran and as you said, an openly socialist campaign in 2013 in Seattle. But the fact is that the campaign's program, meaning what demands we should raise in the campaign,
Mm.
what the tactics and the strategy of the campaign should be, and indeed who the candidate should be, all of these were decisions that were made democratically by the members of Socialist Alternative. And in terms of local versus national, I think that's an important question, which is that we need to run campaigns for independent politics at every chance we get. And I don't think we should make a false distinction between local versus national. Bottom line is, no matter where you run, whether it is for Congress or for city council, if you are going to run as an anti-establishment candidate, expect opposition.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of that opposition, you kind of saw that with a majority Democratic city council when you were trying to get your, tax Amazon legislation passed, that opposition was there. Just like here in California, when we're trying to get CalCare passed, that opposition, even in a majority Democratic state, is there from the Democrats, right? So what made you, while that legislation was going through and being debated, what made you take the activist approach where you were going to get out on the streets with the people, even at the ire, of your colleagues, your colleagues that are, you're caucusing with or whatever, even at the ire of them? What made you decide I need to get on the streets because this was in my platform and I need to do everything I can to get this passed?
We've been on the city council now for 7.5 years. And as I said, we won 3 elections from the very beginning. In fact, the inception of our first election campaign itself was on the basis of movement politics, meaning it's not going to be about one person. And we have to be very clear, crystal clear on the left, that if we expect to make any real change happen, let alone a fundamental shift away from capitalism itself, then we are going to need to build mass movements, where ordinary people, the rank and file of the movement, are empowered and movements are democratically organized. And any power or strength that my office might have, that comes from the very fact that we are very clear it's not about me, it's about building a real grassroots momentum. And so we've used that approach from the very beginning. In fact, that was the basis on which we decided to run for $15 an hour minimum wage, when we ran our first campaign. And in fact, less than 6 months after I took office, we were able to win. We were able to make Seattle the first major city to have won $15 an hour. And the way we won that was exactly the way that we won Tax Amazon 7 years later, which was last year, in the midst of the Black Lives Matter street protests. It is exactly the way you described it, Justin, basically using our office as an organ of social struggle. And we can see from our experience, but this is what we wanted to test out. Our theory also told us exactly the same thing, which is that if you are truly going to stand with working people, then regardless of what you do, you are going to draw the ire, as you said, Justin. You're going to draw the ire of the establishment, and it will be both the Democrats and Republicans. And in fact, in Seattle, just to let your viewers know, there are 9 council members. 8 of them are Democrats. I am one socialist. And yet, whom are we fighting against? It is obviously the billionaire class. It's the CEOs. It's the very wealthy. It's the right wing. But who represents all of these forces? It's the Democratic establishment. And so whether it was about $15 an hour or renters' rights or winning the Amazon tax to fund social housing and Green New Deal projects, each and every single time we have won only because we used our office as a way to build social movements.
And I kind of want to focus on that, the right-wing attacks that you face, right? Because those are going to come, right? Especially, like you said, of course, you're going to draw, if you're running as an anti-establishment to the left flank of the Democrats, you're going to draw their ire. But you are going to get ire from the right-wingers too, AOC and all them get it as well. I think that sometimes makes them run towards the Democrats, where they see themselves as closer to the Democrats than the Republicans. So I'm gonna, get a little closer kind of, with them and work with them and not be that oppositional force. Do you see that as a mistaken strategy? And can you point to kind of some examples of you having to battle against the Democrats? I think I saw on one of your interviews that they didn't want to call it the tax Amazon legislation, right? The Democrats, they want to change the name. So can you speak a little bit about that dynamic that's there?
Absolutely. First of all, it is completely a mistaken strategy to think that the way to fight the right, let alone defeat right wing ideas and right wing, the far right ideology, will be to go closer to a centrist kind of politics that is represented by the Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment. That indeed would be a fatal mistake. In fact, what we've seen in the last many years and the rise of Donald Trump himself, all of that has shown that it's in fact the vacuum that has been left because because truly progressive forces haven't developed themselves, and people don't see an alternative to corporate politics, and it's that vacuum that unfortunately the right has occupied. I mean, remember when Donald Trump first ran, what was he saying? He was saying he was running to represent the forgotten men and women.
Mhm.
Obviously, we knew then, and of course many more millions of more Americans know now, that was a con job on the American working class, meaning Donald Trump did not represent the working class in any way whatsoever. Donald
Mhm.
Trump is a completely odious, reactionary, multi-billionaire who is anti-worker, anti-black, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-woman. And so, but what he did as a con man through his lies was pretend that he was going to be the alternative to the
Mhm.
completely rotten, corporate oriented politics represented by the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So, and it's important that the American working class, the American voters, have delivered a repudiating defeat to Donald Trump's reactionary agenda in the November election. But it would be, again, a serious mistake for the left if we thought that because Trump was defeated, Trumpism is dead. No, absolutely
Mhm.
not. In fact, where the question rises also about the midterm elections. What are going to happen? What is going to happen in the midterm elections next year? And the warning shots of the rise of the right have already been fired, meaning that if the left does not build itself, and if leaders on the left like AOC, who are who obviously came into a Congress with a very genuine idea of putting forward a working class agenda. And I think she's been, we've stood in solidarity with her in the attacks that she faces from the right. But we've also not been shy about expressing our disagreement with her strategy of moving closer to Democrats. And that is why
Mhm.
I would say, bottom line, the squad, if they actually want to fight the right effectively, the bottom line is they need to fight both the right and the Democratic Party's corporate agenda. And the best way of winning over millions of people away from right wing ideas and into the left is to build a multiracial working class movement around concrete demands that can be fought for on a united basis, meaning Medicare for all, taxing Wall Street to make university free, providing affordable housing for all. Think about it. The eviction moratoriums are going to expire now. There's going to
Yep.
be a tsunami of evictions. There is so much that we can unite the working class around.
Yeah, and I think in this moment in time, like you're saying, I feel like there's these people that politically seem like they're kind of floating out there, and the right wing has always been so good and consistent with its messaging to attract those people that are kind of in that political no man's land. But what we see, especially when we look at polling and we look at issues and policies, that people really, when you break it down, are very progressive. When you break it down, they're very progressive. When you strip out all the labels and all the propaganda and all this and that, they are very progressive. But if you're not, actually using the popularity of those issues and those policies that you are fighting for, you as the working class politician, then you're allowing that opportunity to grow this coalition, like you were saying, to pass you by. And so my question is to you, like, what have you experienced when it comes to, this recall election that's going on against you? And do you think that the people of Seattle, because of your activism for those, progressive and working class policies that are helping the everyday people there, do you think that they're going to be able to see past that, like we're, advising, the squad and some of these national progressive politicians to do, to really entrench their support and their popularity by actually fighting for these things? Do you think and foresee that happening in your case?
I think it'll be difficult to hold up a crystal ball as to what exactly will happen in terms of the recall attack, as you said, that has been launched against us. But I think we can start by recognizing that the policies that we have fought for in Seattle, like the $15 minimum wage, like the Amazon tax, like renters' rights. Like right now, we are in the midst of fighting for winning renters' rights. In fact, on Monday, there is a very important piece of legislation that is going to come from my office for a vote on the city council. And we are organizing renters around it, which is to introduce a ban on all school year evictions of children and educators in the public school district. It is so, again, yet another example of extremely popular idea. And so if you talk to ordinary people on the street, regardless of race, and you ask them, do you think we should, like, this is what we experienced last summer, for example, in the thick of the Black Lives Matter protest, when we went to ordinary people, especially the Black community, but all races, when we went to working people and said, do you think that multi-billion-dollar corporations like Amazon and billionaires like Jeff Bezos should be taxed so that we can have affordable housing? And people's response was, hell yes. And we got 20,000 signatures in 20 days at the protest. I mean,
Wow.
that's how popular, 1,000 signatures a day. And that is what forced the Democratic establishment to concede. And that's the kind of popularity we see on the ground for all of these, as you said, tremendously progressive policies. And in it, there's so much potential to unite people around it. But it sort of goes back to your earlier question about how do you actually win on those things? You don't win by trying to hide what those policies actually are. So in other words, the reason we instead insisted on calling our movement the Tax Amazon movement and not raise progressive revenues to build affordable housing movement is because when you say this is the Amazon tax, it is immediately clear to working people what you're talking about. You are talking about taxing the richest of the rich who have plundered all the wealth in our society so that we can have something for ordinary people, indeed the working people who make our cities run. So when you in fact use a confrontational approach and you have very clear demands, that actually energizes and mobilizes ordinary people. Similarly, at the federal level, we should be fighting boldly for Medicare for all. We should not be calling it anything else. We should fight for Medicare for all. And look at the polls. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everybody, there's a huge majority that supports it.
And so what do you make of, at the national level, there being this, ease at which progressives do change that language, kind of depending on the state of the situation, right? When we're talking about it's $15 minimum wage or we're out, they aren't willing to do that. Abolish ICE isn't really being talked about anymore. They're not calling what's happening at the border concentration camps anymore. People aren't, at least with, the Israel-Palestine issue, there was more progressive speaking out about that. But at the end of the day, that weapon sale still goes through. So like, what do you make of the ease at which it seems like they're willing to kind of conform to the, democratic nomenclature of that moment?
I think it is.
And is that a mistake?
It is absolutely a mistake. There is no question about that. And we could have told you this 7.5 years ago, but now we have the proof, of having fought for and won. The unparalleled track record of our office is not because of some special qualities that I embody. It's because of the strategy and tactics that we have used and the analysis of how capitalism works that all of our work has been based on, which is, understanding that you cannot slip progressive policies under the radar of the ruling class. If you're fighting for Medicare for all, no matter what you call it, They know you're fighting for Medicare for all, and they're going to
Mhm.
oppose it to the nail. But in the process of watering down the demands, and then, like you said, taking on the establishment's nomenclature, what you end up doing is you end up demobilizing ordinary people who otherwise would have come and fought alongside you. The thing is, the mistake that a lot of these progressives are making, let's assume they're well-meaning,
Mhm.
and yet it is a mistake. And so it's not a question about whether you're well-meaning or not. We're starting with the assumption that you're a well-meaning elected representative. But my point is that's not enough. The
Right. It's not
strategy
enough. Yeah.
matters, and so if as an elected representative you believe that somehow you are, just because your ideas are correct, because they are humane, because you have a mountain of data that supports you, that somehow one day magically you're going to convince Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the billionaires that they represent. No, that's not going to happen. If you can win, you're going to win despite their opposition. So stop trying to win them over. Understand that they are not on your side. Embrace that conflict. It's a badge of honor if you're fighting for
Mhm.
the working class and if the billionaire class is against you. So in other words, let me just tell you a very quick thing. If you win an election and then you run for re-election, if you claim to be a working class representative, and if your re-election is a cakewalk, you are doing something gravely wrong. The reason,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, if you are actually fighting for working people,
Yeah.
then you will become enemy number one for
The
the ruling
pariah.
class.
Yeah.
But that is your confirmation that you are doing the right thing, because there is no way of winning things for working people under capitalism without class struggle, because that is how capitalism has structured the system. It is posed to you as a class struggle. Like, I as a socialist did not invent class struggle, or I am not insisting on class struggle because somehow I am interested in having conflict every day in my life. No, what I am
Mhm.
doing is understanding that it is posed as a conflict. And so you're either on the side of the ruling class or you're on the side of the working class. You pick one side and you go with it, and if you're going to fight for the working class, do it proudly, and you can actually win. And the mistake that many of the elected representatives are making right now, and also labor leaders and other movement leaders, is that they underestimate the hunger among millions of young people to actually have a fight back. That is one of the biggest mistakes that we can make at this moment in history, because at this moment, tens of millions of Americans, especially millions of young people, are looking for an avenue to fight back. Look at the 26 million people who walked out on the streets during Black Lives Matter, making it the largest street protest movement in US history. There is a hunger for change. We have to tap into it.
I mean, just going right off of that, do you see that the future for that in the Democratic Party? I mean, it just does not feel like the establishment of that party will allow anyone within the ranks who is any type of outsider, insurgent candidate to actually make a change within that party, without kind of changing them, like I said earlier, to using the same nomenclature as them and voting on the bills that doesn't have $15 minimum wage in it, doesn't have the public option and stuff like that. Do you see that in the future of the Democratic Party?
It's not going to happen from inside. The kind of change that you're talking about, Justin, cannot come from inside the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is a party of Wall Street. They are, of course, they have differences from the Republicans, but at the end of the day, both those parties represent the interests of big business, of the ruling class, of the elite. And so it was no surprise when, remember when Bernie Sanders ran both times, his agenda for a political revolution against the billionaire class was extremely popular and across racial divisions. I mean, the support among women as a whole, the support in the Black community, support in the South, the states that the Democratic Party writes off as irredeemably right wing, those states, working people supported Bernie Sanders in huge
Mhm.
numbers. And as Socialist Alternative and I have repeatedly said, if Bernie Sanders was the Democratic candidate, he would have won the first election, when Trump won against Hillary Clinton. And so, what we are seeing here is that the Democratic Party is sending us a loud and clear message. We are not your party. We are not the party for working people. So it's our job to take that message. And that is why it is urgent that we begin the project of building a new party, an independent party for the working class of America.
And is Socialist Alternative as a group working on a party or any national candidates to that effect? I think there are a lot of people that, like you said, would be very much so interested in voting for a candidate like that, whether it be in Congress or as a presidential candidate. So is there any I guess interest in Socialist Alternative doing that, or are they in the process of doing that at the moment?
I mean, we would very much be interested in it. In fact, we are. I think it's fair to say that Socialist Alternative is really helping to lead this discussion on the left for the new party and why we need such a party for the working class that is independent of the Democratic Party, independent of corporate forces. I would say, though, that we don't believe that Socialist Alternative by itself can do this, because we are not large enough. So in other words, what we need is for various forces on the left, especially socialist forces, to but also other progressive forces. We need the labor movement to be part of this. So in other words, we need hundreds of organizations to come together and maybe start by having a nationwide conference where we can have different views heard and think about how we can go forward. But absolutely, we need to run candidates of the kind you're talking about, Justin, because what we have shown in Seattle is that if you run election campaigns where it is not about the candidate or about that individual, and you don't buy into superstar or personality politics, which are fatal to social movements, but instead see the election campaigns as part and parcel of the exercise of building movements, then you can really energize and empower working people to become part of something organized. So, just to give you a concrete example, when we took office in 2014, we didn't just say, oh, we need to win $15 an hour. What we did using my office, after I was inaugurated, was to launch a grassroots movement called the 15 Now campaign. And through that 15 Now campaign, we organized marches, rallies, action conferences, where ordinary people came together and discussed and debated and voted on various issues. That's the kind of approach we need, except magnified many times over, because we need this on a national scale. But I think everybody who is watching this needs to get involved in some shape or form. So concretely, I would urge those you're watching this and you feel like what I'm saying makes sense, feel free to contact socialistalternative.org. I mean, we've reached a lot of people through our ideas, and we need to reach many more. But what I'm saying is that Socialist Alternative doesn't have delusions of grandeur that we can do it ourselves. No one organization on the left can do it. But what we need is to build a principled, united effort to make that happen.
Most definitely. I'll definitely make sure I put that link in the description box of this, because I think that's amazing. And I personally will be looking into that as well, because I think that y'all are doing the actual necessary work to change, the actual system that we're living under, which I think, it feels like such a huge and tremendous task. But if you can do it, like you said, like you've done in Seattle at the local level, step by step, you can build not only, the society that we want, but you can also build the support, right? You can actually build that coalition of people that actually back and support you. So, on that same vein, what are some of the upcoming fights that you have in Seattle? And can you, and going back to the tax Amazon legislation, how supportive was the rest of the city council initially, and what specific strategies, I guess other than marches, did you use to kind of to flip those votes and actually put pressure on those council members to ensure that they voted yes on that?
I'll start with that part of your question, Justin. Yeah, to make it very simple, there was one newly elected Democrat who, joined me at least briefly in pushing for the tax Amazon legislation that we had put forward, through my office and through their office, but then really did not push for the fighting strategy that we would have needed. But other than that, so, 7 other council members, again, as I said, they're all Democrats. They were not supporting the Amazon tax. In fact, to be honest with you, The city council right now is not only 8 Democrats, 1 socialist. The 9-member city council is a super majority of women and a majority women of color council, and yet every single time it is still our socialist office that stands with working people. That's also
Yeah,
a very important reminder for all of us
it is.
that it's not the identity, personal
Mhm.
identity of a leader that matters so much as what side they're on. So somebody can be brown skinned and immigrant and woman like me, and yet not stand with working people and with women and with the majority of brown skinned people who need us to fight for
Right.
them and alongside them. And so I think ultimately we have to get behind the very deceptive identity politics and understand that we have to fight against the specific oppressions, but the only way to fight against them is to join hands with everybody who wants to fight against the exploitative system as a whole. And so, concretely, the only way we were able to win Tax Amazon, the Tax Amazon movement was able to win this historic success despite the opposition of the Democrats, was by launching what we call the Tax Amazon movement. But within the movement, we had to push back against conservative ideas brought forward by other self-appointed leaders, many, NGO
Mhm.
leaders and other leaders who are in the movement but are very tied to the Democratic Party politicians. And they
Mhm.
wanted to make it a very typical top down kind of movement in name only, but really they're going to go and negotiate with the Democratic politicians.
Right.
I have so much just an absolute rejection, a hatred of that kind of insider approach, because I have seen that be rotten time and time again and sell out ordinary people, sell out the marginalized community. So I absolutely do not accept that kind of insider strategy where ordinary people are told, the rank and file of the movement is told, yeah, trust me as a leader, I'll go and negotiate and then I'm going to sell you out. No, absolutely not. So we fought back against that
Mhm.
successfully, and we insisted on a truly democratically organized movement. Meaning what? Meaning the lifeblood of the organization was the thousands of people who were part of the movement. And obviously we, as I said, we did marches and rallies, but the main sort of strategy through which we empowered the rank and file was to organize what I called action conferences, meaning
Mhm.
these were very seriously prepared by us and by other leaders who were elected by the movement. So there were no self-appointed leaders. We said, you hold us accountable. These are the promises we are making to you publicly. And the action conferences were very serious political exercises where we put forward ideas, we put forward, the leadership would put forward proposals. We had an actual debate about, for example, how much of a tax should we demand? What
Mhm.
seems like winnable, what doesn't seem too small, what kind of tactic should we use? Should we launch a ballot initiative? Should we call for such and such kind of action? All of that was debated and discussed by the hundreds of people who attended every action
Mhm.
conference, making up thousands of people who ended up attending all the action conferences. And it was through that mechanism of action conferences that we were able to win. So,
Wow.
if you asked me what was the backbone of winning the action conference, it was the Tax Amazon, it was the action conferences. And in some ways, it sort of mimicked how it would work in a democratically organized labor union, where the rank
Yeah.
and file would be empowered and would be able to hold the leadership accountable. And just to add one more point to this, because many of your viewers might not know this, I am paid $146,000 by the city council. That's my official salary. But I take home only the average worker's wage, which is $40,000. And the
Wow.
rest after taxes goes into what I call the solidarity fund. And I don't do this as some sort of point of charity or some sort of purist exercise so that people can praise me. The point is that one of the ways to hold leadership accountable, whether it's an elected official or a labor union leader, is to make sure that the living standards of the leaders are not so far removed from the rank and file that they
Yeah.
lose their they lose their commitment.
Mhm.
We need tremendous self-sacrifice at the top. Leaders should be working harder than the rank and file. They should be embodying a greater self-sacrifice than the rank and file. And so that's the kind of commitment that we enforced inside the movement leadership, and that is the only way that we were able to win this. And the reason the Democrats had to concede was because there were thousands of people who were empowered through the action conferences.
Yeah, no, I mean that's incredible, and the fact that you're doing that, I think that's you're showing true leadership, right? That's true leadership, and I think it keeps you, like you said, connected to those people that you're fighting for. And it feels like when people go to DC, they lose that connection, they lose that sense of urgency, that sense of we need this right now. We need a $15 minimum wage. Hell, we need a $20 minimum wage.
Yeah,
With
I
all
mean,
these,
yeah.
go
Can
ahead.
I just say one other thing, Justin? I mean, obviously, the question of what your living standards are like. So, if you end up becoming a millionaire, then you get completely out of touch with the life that most working Americans live. So that is that's the least that we should demand from our elected representatives. So, one of the ideas we've put forward in Socialist Alternative is that this new party for the working class, we have to have the rank and file has to insist that anybody who gets elected as as a representative of this party has to take the average skilled worker's wage, because we need that commitment. But I'll tell you another thing, something that goes hand in hand with the kind of material living standards of elected officials is also the fact that if you are actually fighting for working class, and then this goes back to the ideas that we were just talking about a few minutes earlier, you will make the establishment angry. So in other words, if you get a position like mine where I am an elected representative and I'm fighting for the working class, I am anti-establishment, you have to go to work every single day in City Hall knowing that these Democrats, they are not your friends, they are not your colleagues. You are not going there to get their praise and affirmation. The people you are fighting for are outside City Hall. It's the tens of thousands of ordinary people in Seattle who are relying on me to not sell out, who want to be empowered by our office so that they can come and build a movement and fight for our collective rights. So that fear of conflict, that refusal to take on that conflict is also it's a hard nut to crack. Many people might even agree to take the average worker's wage, but what is the hardest in some ways is to accept the fact that if you are going to represent the movement and you are at the top and you're representing the movement, then expect your life to be full of conflict. So I don't go to work every day thinking my life is going to be easy. And that is, I think that's a very big component. People want their lives to be easy. It's understandable because it's hard to be in conflict, but you have to do that. It is a moral and political imperative to embrace that conflict.
And I think that's a big issue that progressives on the national level, particularly, and even on state levels. I talked to Ash Kalra from California, and he's introducing CalCare, single payer, but he's gonna talk up the Speaker of the House, even though that Speaker of the House is taking hundreds of $1,000s from insurance companies. I'm saying, like, you can't sit there and tell me that this person is a good person when they're denying people the right to have health care, and people are dying, going bankrupt because of that. And I think that this instinct, I guess it is, to be so hunky-dory with your colleagues and in order to try and win them over will never work if you're a progressive, because you're not just that person that you're getting close with. Is they don't represent the people. They are a vessel there through the corporation to serve the corporation and pass legislation for the corporation, the establishment, and the status quo. So
absolutely,
it's like people need to stop looking at these people as like, oh, they're just, it's just Pete Buttigieg. He's just a human being with a dog in a park. No. That's a vessel being put there by corporations to ensure that the people do not, we can never advance as a society, and we're continuously decades behind other countries.
Absolutely. And I think, Justin, with that example that you gave, you hit the nail on the head, in the sense that, therein lies the fundamental difference. So had we been in the place of that person who introduced Medicare for all, we would have understood that it's not about just introducing Medicare for all. Obviously, we want representatives who will do that. We want representatives who will, talk about Medicare for all in a positive way, use their social media. None of that is going to be enough unless you are willing to call out the Democrats, expose the people who are not on the side of Medicare for all. So rather than saying nice things about that speaker, we would have said, shame on this politician who says he's on the side of working people. but he won't support Medicare for all. He's taking money from the health insurance industry. He's taking money from big pharma. It's when
Right.
you do that that the conflict comes to a head, and then they will start the character assassination of you. I have seen
Hmm.
every type of character assassination leveled against me, all the way from me being odious to me being unbecoming to me not knowing how to build relationships. All of these personality based attacks will be leveled against you when you do that. And that's when you know you're doing the right thing. Because
Yeah.
the reason they launch those personality based attacks is because they cannot come out and honestly confront the politics and say, actually, you're right, I am selling out working people because I'm taking money from health insurance industry. They're not going to say that. What they're going to say is that, oh, this person does not know how to build a relationship with me. She's odious, she's unbecoming, she is too confrontational. She doesn't know how to make she doesn't know how to collaborate. Oh, that's a very common thing, and so we have to have the
Yeah.
courage to say, absolutely, we need to collaborate, but not with representatives of big business. We build unity at the bottom with working people. We unite
Mhm.
people. People are not going to agree on everything at all times, but we unite everybody on a principled basis, on the basis of the idea that all of us, we are suffering because we don't have $15 an hour or Medicare for all, or whatever it may be, affordable housing.
Right. And, I know I want to be conscious of your time, but just to kind of wrap up the interview, I want to talk a little bit about, expectations and standards. I've kind of been saying since I started the show that we have an issue in this country with standards, right? And so we, like let's say Joe Biden's infrastructure plan, right, starts at 4 trillion, or Manchin wants 4 trillion, Biden starts with 2.2 trillion, then it gets dwindled down to 1 trillion before they even start really negotiating, right? So it seems like as progressives we need to start being more intentional when we're talking about red lines, when we're actually talking about, no, $15 is not enough, $20, because only on at least $20, maybe even more, can you actually survive in this country. So I'm not even going to engage at the debate at the $15 level because we need 20. I feel like that kind of gets lost in the strategy and the tactic, and then we end up starting with the compromise position and then maybe dwindling down to $11 or $12. So like, do you think that as progressives and as a left, we should be kind of firm on some of these things that are not really negotiable to be a working person and survive in this country?
Absolutely, we have to be non-negotiable in this, in the sense that life sucks for most people under capitalism, and so there are so many things that need to be fixed, and ultimately it's not going to happen through this and that reform. We need
Right.
a fundamental shift away from capitalism, and then the only thing that will accomplish that is for us to build mass movements of millions of people, and this will need to be on an international basis with hundreds of millions of people to take the
Mhm.
commanding heights of the economy into democratic public ownership. All the big fossil fuel corporations like Amazon and Boeing, they have to be owned and run by the working class. So part of what you're talking about, part of what it means to be non-negotiable is, first of all, to tie our day-to-day strategy to the question of where we are headed. If we don't have that
Mhm.
vision, we will end up thinking that, oh, this or that reform is the end of the road. We have to understand
Right.
that no single reform is going to be enough, as hard as it will be to win anything, whether it is 15 or $20 an hour. We know the ruling class will fight, and their political representatives will fight us tooth and nail. So every single reform will be hard won and hard fought for, but even then it will not be enough. So having a clear understanding of what it means, what systemic change means itself is
Mhm.
crucial, which is why I'm also again inviting your viewers to find out more about socialist alternative, because the scientific understanding of the nature of the capitalist system has a lot to do with why we have been so successful in Seattle. It's not out of
Mhm.
nowhere, it's based on all of that. However, as far as obviously the example that you used about Biden, and the way he's he and the other corporate Democrats, they preemptively water down their demands, in preparation for the fact that they know they're not going to appease Wall Street by those higher demands. And so we know for example, the infrastructure program that Biden has put forward is grossly inadequate, not to mention the fact that so much of it is in the form of quote unquote public-private partnership, which we know public-private partnership means millionaires get, profits, and the
Yeah.
public gets screwed. So we have to point out all of those problems. But one other point we need to understand is, for the left, when we are talking about actually building movements to win a certain demand, then it is important for that's a scientific exercise. What demand to put forward is not a straightforward thing. It is a question of really understanding, having a ear to the ground, and understanding what working people will believe is winnable, and
Mhm.
also at the same time exciting enough to go out there and fight for. So when we put forward $15 an
Interesting.
hour, it was not a demand that Socialist Alternative or I invented. The
Mhm.
reason we zeroed in on 15 was because we had observed that clearly it is capturing the imagination of workers across the nation. We saw the very courageous walkout by fast food workers in Manhattan
Mhm.
in November of the previous year, 2012, where, during the Thanksgiving, just before Thanksgiving holidays. So that was a glimpse of how the idea of $15 an hour was going to ignite a passion, and that
Mhm.
you need, because if a mass of working people are not going to be willing to come and fight for something, you're not going to win. So it's not a question of
Right.
what you believe in. It's a question of what you are able to convince other people of. So in other
Mhm.
words, movement building and being a socialist is all about not being in an echo chamber. It's about convincing people who don't already agree with you. So in that sense, when we zeroed in on 15, we didn't lie to people and say this is enough for your standard of living. In fact, we were very open about how this is not a living wage. We don't claim it's a living wage.
Wow.
However, it is a 65% jump from our current minimum wage,
Right.
and
Right.
working people want to fight for it. Will you join us? So we you
Yeah.
know so we have to be truthful to the working class,
Right.
and we have to understand what demand will actually ignite the desire to fight for it. And so,
Yeah.
just to give
That
you a
makes sense.
counter example, Justin, if we had said, $35 an hour is what we need, come out and fight for it, I don't think we would have succeeded, because people would have
Yeah.
thought it's pie in the sky, it's not
Yeah.
winnable. $15 an hour seemed winnable. Nobody
Mhm.
was kidding themselves that it was enough. But if we can win this, then we can build on top of it with
Right.
future victories.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that makes sense, and I think the like you're saying, you need to get the movement there first before you can start fighting on that level. And I think that's why, I think at a national level, we need to start talking about $20 so that in Seattle or, in Los Angeles or wherever the next place is, that's not taboo to say, okay, this is a livable wage that we need to fight for. Will you join us? People don't think it's pie in the sky, but that's also what's frustrating about something like Medicare for All. Because when you first got into, the Seattle City Council, that probably was thought of as pie in the sky.
Oh,
But eight,
15
nine
was
years,
totally thought of as pie in the sky. I mean, but not by working people. But the establishment told us, oh, you're in dreamland, it's not going to win. Working people were, some were, straight up excited by it and wanted to fight for it. But some other working people asked us, do you think we could win? And so it's our job to explain to them how we can win.
exactly, exactly. And then once we get a situation where something like Medicare for All is popular, we need to make sure we take advantage of that popularity, right? Because we also realize that it took a lot of organizing and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears out on the streets to get people to this point where they believe that this is something that's feasible. Now we need to take advantage of that, grasp this opportunity, and move it forward. And that's by, I don't know, maybe forcing a vote on it, putting it up for on the floor. When it's up for a vote, then maybe we can use our social media and our platforms to create that mass movement that you're talking about, to ignite that. But we can't always just sit back and say, oh, well, we'll push it off till later. We'll get in the next bill, and the next bill. And then here you go. It's 2022 and you lose the midterms, and then you're screwed. So, I think the example of what you're doing should be, kind of that beacon of light that we need, not only on a national level, but in other places like in California. So, I really appreciate you coming on, Kshama. Solidarity with you. Really hope that, the recall election fails because people in Seattle understand and know that you are fighting for them. Like I said, really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything you'd like to let the viewers know? Anywhere they could donate, support you, or support your causes that you're doing in Seattle right now?
Absolutely. People should reach out to kshamasolidarity.org. That's the website of our solidarity campaign against the recall. That's my first name, KSHAMA, solidarity, all one word, .org. We absolutely need people from across the nation. Everybody who's watching this has a stake in defeating this recall, because we know this is an attack on the democratic will of voters in Seattle. It is an attempt to chill protest movements. It's no coincidence that two of the three charges, false charges against me, are related to my support of the Black Lives Matter movement. So it's an attempt to go after rank and file activists. It's not only again an attack on me and my office, it's an attack on our movements. And if we let them succeed in this attack, they will be emboldened. The ruling class and the right wing will be emboldened to go and attack our movements more and more. And it's not just about Seattle. They will do it in other cities. So no matter where you're located, if you're listening to this, please go to kshamasolidarity.org, make a donation. And also, if there are left and labor leaders or community leaders in your city who would like to publicly support our campaign through an endorsement statement, we really need that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Kshama, and best of luck. We'll have to definitely have you back on soon.
Thank you so much, Justin. Really enjoyed. Happy to be back again anytime.
All right. Thank you. Awesome. Wow. Amazing. Just to hear her story, how she actually battles against a full, I didn't even know it was all Democrats. It's all Democrats in the Seattle City Council. All Democrats. Completely. Like that's even more, that's even more of a super majority than we have here in California, which is supposed to be considered, and on the LA City Council, which is supposed to be considered obviously one of the most progressive states. Yet she still has to fight tooth and nail against those very people. So yes, all power to her. I appreciate her coming on, and I think everything she was saying is so spot on. You have to go in there knowing that you are stepping into a place that is, adversarial to what you are fighting for completely. And to see that she's actually participating and being an activist while in office, and that's how she's getting things done. She's actually holding people's feet to the fire and exposing them and saying, this is why you're not supporting this legislation, because you're bought off by your corporate donors. That's why you're not supporting it. It's not because X, Y, and Z. Look, it's 2021 and people understand that people deserve healthcare in this country. That's what I'm talking about with expectations and standards. We're going to sit here and let people use the excuse that in 2021 with the internet, with the internet and the ability to gather and see information from all over the world and to understand how other countries work, to see outside of this American exceptionalist bubble that was created through the propaganda of the media having complete control. But now that we have the access to that information, that there's still people that are supposed to be on the side of the working class that don't support Medicare for all. No, that's beyond the pale. That's beyond the pale. And I will not be voting for you. I will not be voting for you if you tell me that it's too expensive or people like what they have now or whatever excuse you're going to make. I'm not even going to entertain you at that point. You will not be entertained. You will not be getting my vote. And that's how we change it. Once we get people to realize that, wait, no, this isn't just something that happens, or it has to be this way, or it happens like this all the way around the world. No, it happens here and that's it. This is the only developed country where that happens. And if you don't support that, then I'm sorry, but I cannot vote for you. I can't vote for you. And I won't be voting for you. And once they actually start losing votes, once they actually start losing elections, they have to make a decision. Keep it the way it is and continue to lose time after time after time, or change. So what do you like better? Do you like the power trip that you get from being in power? Do you like that? Or do you just want the money from your corporate donors? They still might just choose the money. and be losers the whole time for the next 8 to 12 years. That's possible. That's possible. But at that point, I mean, at that point, it's the we've devolved to such a point where we need a complete overhaul anyway. We need to, and what Kshama was saying about changing systems, right? Because a lot of times we do talk about these policies that are reforms, and I'm not saying of course we fight to change the whole system. Is that going to happen right away? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that'll happen right away. But in the meantime, we can make people's lives better. In the meantime, we can pass things that will make people's lives better, whether that's a local level like Shama's doing in Seattle, amazingly, to actually, she's taking the average salary, foregoing the rest of after taxes of her salary to take the average salary that someone else in the average salary in, I don't know if it's Seattle or Washington, takes, because she actually has solidarity and cares about those people and wants those people to be able to live better lives. And it really won't like, sometimes I sit here and think, I'm like, how different would things really be if we had Medicare for all? People would have health care and Blue Cross Blue Shield wouldn't exist. And it's like, what would we care about those X amount of, I don't know, 100,000 to 300,000 whatever jobs over the healthcare of the rest of the people in this country? Sometimes I start to laugh, like, thinking about some of these excuses that are made for the reason why we're the only developed country that still doesn't have healthcare. And so when I have Ash Kalra back on from the California Assembly, which I will be having him back on, and we're going to talk about CalCare, which was single payer here in the state of California, I'm going to propose, and ask him why he's not doing the same things that Shama's doing in Seattle to ensure that we can get single payer in this state, because who knows what could happen after that. Who knows what could happen after that? That could be a trigger. That could be a spark. You never know. But you got to get it done. You got to get it done. And look what happened with Shama in Seattle. Now, when they say, oh, $15 minimum wage, it's this, it's that, you say, well, no, they got it done in Seattle. And look, jobs haven't went down. Wages obviously have went up. Jobs and businesses are still open. They haven't closed. Some new businesses are popping up. It actually works. So they can't have this right-wing fear mongering. I mean, they can, but it's easily disproven when you can point, oh, it's happening here and everything is fine. In fact, things are much better. Right? That could happen here in California with CalCare and single payer here in the state. But if you're going to allow yourself to be walked over by these fake ass corporate Democrats who are, wearing a disguise of actually being nice people that are caring, and, oh, they have families too, they're just normal people, they just don't agree with us. Well, no, I'm sorry, but it's 2021 and it's too late for that shit. Do you see what's going around this country? It's too late for all that. It's too late for all that. Oh, maybe in 2022 we'll get it passed. Maybe next legislative session we'll get it proposed. No. No. We are past 15 being compassionate. Yeah, I'm telling you, as soon as I feel like I stopped, like, truly just fighting for 15 when I heard that interview with the workers striking in Bessemer, Alabama. And it really made it real for me, because I was able to apply it to this person's life. And he said Jeff Bezos and Amazon struts around because they have a $15 minimum wage. Like, that's, us doing so amazingly now because we make that money. We're still struggling. This is in Bessemer, Alabama. Now you can imagine if all the costs in the area are much higher than Bessemer, Alabama, like, I don't know any major city in the United States. And then you're going to tell me that fighting for 15, 9 years after the fight for 15 originally started, when inflation hits and it's now worth, I mean, I think by 2026, that $15 minimum wage is going to be worth like $11, right? So we can't continue down this cycle of expecting so little, So, but yeah, everyone go support Shama, in whatever way you can. And check out Socialist Alternative. I'll be checking it out too, and I guess we can go on this journey together, because I think it feel like that group feels like real, like they're actually like, no, we're all out for real change, and we're not just gonna allow ourselves to get in cozy with these people, even if they're progressive and they espouse the same ideology that we espouse. We're not just going to let that be enough. This the fact that they're proposing these things or that they speak well about these things. We're actually going to hold their feet to the fire to get this shit passed and take the necessary measures to pass these things. To pass these things. That's what that group feels like it's doing. It feels like it's about. Like that feels real to me. And that feels like something that, I would be interested in. So I'll be checking it out. You guys definitely should check it out too. Definitely should check it out too. Let's hear a conversation about Julian. I'll have to bring. Who should I bring on to talk about that? Because I do want an update on that. Obviously, the persecution of Julian Assange is completely unacceptable and it's criminal. And I mean, to me, it's almost crazy the fact that it felt like people thought it was a better shot at Trump pardoning Assange than Biden. It's almost like people don't like Biden is not even being pressured into that at all, and maybe it'll happen by the end of his first term. That happens. I mean, it happened, at the end of Trump's term, and that pressure happened at the end of Obama's term as well. But it feels like people think that there's a better shot that you could trick Trump into doing it than getting someone like Biden to do that. Oh, how about Misty? Yeah, I should have Misty on. She had me on before I even started the show. She had me on. So let me write that down because I do want to talk to her about that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Slow news day, another good one. Okay. What do you think about Naomi Osaka withdrawal from French Open? I talked about that a little earlier, but completely in solidarity with her. Completely in solidarity. And as an athlete, I feel like I have, a little bit more weight behind me saying that, but I think people don't, because we play, our sports are obviously so physically focused, visually, people don't really understand all the mental that goes behind that, and the anxiety, stress, and depression that can come, from that environment as well, and that constant, striving to be the best, or the constant competition and all these things, like, and then having to talk to the media, which she said she's not great at public speaking. So I understand it. And I'm completely in solidarity with her about that. Another corp should big corp. I saw a recent article. Maybe I can pull it up because this kind of illuminates another thing to me, kind of just about how the United States and just privatizing, when you privatize things, the way that it can just completely ruin someone's life. And I know I saw this recently. I got sent this, and it says it's been only one day since Puerto Rico's electricity grid was forcibly privatized by the United States government, and Puerto Ricans are already being billed nefariously. Last month, $117 for the bill. This month, $669. I mean, that would put a lot of people in this country, in a relatively wealthy, wealthy nation. That would put a lot of people in a bind, especially because we know before the pandemic, a large amount of Americans couldn't afford a $400 emergency. So now all of a sudden their bill is $500 more because it got privatized, and the government allowed some American corporation to come in and start controlling part of that energy grid. And immediately they don't even waste any time. Like, that's what it feels like. We're in this new era where, I mean, these corporations have just complete free reign and do whatever they want. Complete free reign. And the fact that this is allowed to happen is nuts to me. And I saw that. So I want to stand in solidarity with the Puerto Rican, people. And that this is insane. And I hope that there's some type of, movement in that country to reverse this, because this This is ridiculous. But this just goes to show. I mean, this just goes to show what happens when you allow, like Kshama was saying, it's a systematic, it's a systemic issue. It's a systemic issue with capitalism in general. They inject that little bit of capitalism into Puerto Rico, and immediately these people are billed $500 more on their electricity bill, as if anyone can afford that in this country, let alone in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, that's just another crazy thing that's happening. Just another crazy thing. I was gonna do another story. I'm gonna save it until I get my camera fixed because I wanna not be using my computer webcam essentially. Puerto Rico is this country. I guess, yeah, Puerto Rico is like, I don't know. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know the entire dynamics behind that. They're part. Are they American citizens? Puerto Ricans? But I don't think they can vote, right? They can't vote for national elections. They shouldn't. I feel like they should be they should definitely have their own sovereignty. Like, why the hell are they still part of this country? And if they are part of this country, then why aren't we? Well, I mean, we don't provide our own people with basic necessities, so I don't expect us to provide a territory with one. Yeah, but I was gonna do another story. I probably gonna wait till I get my camera fixed, but I do want to do one probably in the next 2 or 3 days. So I'll be back on in the next 2 or 3 days. Oh, let me just get to super chats. I think I might have missed some while I was talking to Kshama. So let me do that, and then I'm gonna get my camera actually fixed. We're gonna figure out the issue. I don't know. There's some type of like white box that appears on the screen, and I don't know exactly how to get rid of that. But let me get to these super chats real quick. Seth Marks, I read that one. Brian Frederick, read that one. Dan Keating, appreciate the super chat. Love your show. Would you ever have Caleb Maupin on? I have to check out who that is. I'm not sure who that is, but let me write that name down. Like I said, I'm gonna be better writing names down. So I got you. I'll look up who that is. I'm not sure who that is at the moment. Check out Clipsis. Thanks so much for the super chat. Check out Socialist Alternative if you want to get involved in revolutionary socialism. Most definitely. I'll be doing that as well. Like I said earlier, Sean Hurl, appreciate the super chat. Potential guest Marcus Rashford, English soccer player, campaigner on child hunger in UK. Okay, cool. Yeah, I definitely want to start talking to some more athletes. I feel like I can bring some more athletes kind of along. I think there are a lot of athletes right now that, like Jaylen Brown, who plays for the Celtics, like Kyrie, who they speak out on these issues, and you can tell that they truly care about, fighting for normal, ordinary people. But maybe they don't know exactly everything about the ins and outs of politics, and why we need to look outside of just supporting someone that's not the Republican Party to get that done. And so I want to start having more of those conversations, and I will. I promise. Dan, appreciate the super chat. The Dem Party is a graveyard for progressive ideas. Yeah, I remember Kshama saying that. I keep saying Kshama saying that years ago, and she was right, and she's continuing to be proven right every single day. Ibanez 690, appreciate the super chat. Keep spreading the word. Yes, keep spreading the word. D-Wow, the Black Panther, excuse me, can't talk. Appreciate the super chat. Keep up the excellent work, my brother. Thank you, man. I will. I'm trying to provide this content for you guys. I'm trying to keep up with everything. I do love doing this. And we're gonna make it work with the schedule. Make sure we're streaming for you guys. Eric Lundy, appreciate the super chat. Should we find a Biden primary opponent and why? I mean, I think if there's one with good enough name recognition, yeah, why not? Because then you might, what are we talking about, right? We're talking about pulling him to the left, and if you can, who knows if you can. I mean, I think it'll be harder in a primary because it's kind of winner take all. But if you're actually running, a left candidate in the general election, I think that might be more feasible to make a difference. Clipsis 101 or Clipsis 1. Sorry, please appreciate the super chat. Kshama Sawant is facing a right-wing capitalist recall attempt. Help this fighter of the people keep her seat at KshamaSolidarity.org. That's KSHAMA Solidarity.org. Make sure everyone is supporting Kshama. That's wild to me. Something similar going on here in California with Governor Newsom, although it's a little bit different. He's not getting recalled because he's some super progressive fighter for working people on the left. It's more so because, I mean, he did bungle, parts of the COVID response, and there was a lot of kind of right-wing business owners and right-wingers in general who got enough signatures, I think, to get that recall election after like a year or two. So little different situation, but definitely standing in solidarity with Kshama. But yeah, appreciate everyone coming back to the stream. Sorry it was kind of a short one. Amazing guest in Kshama. A true fighter for the people. It really inspires me. So thank you everyone for stopping by. Are you looking into the mayor race in New York City? I have a little bit, and I think I'm going to start to a little bit more and maybe have someone on talk about that as well. How about Charles Barkley chit chat? That would be awesome. That would be awesome. And Charles Barkley has actually spoken explicitly about politics a few different times. So I don't know if I'll be able to get him on the show. Obviously he's very big time, but we'll see. But yeah, appreciate everyone coming by. We'll be back in a few days. And the camera will be fixed and we'll be ready to go. But until then, peace.